Kia ora, good evening. The Reserve Bank has today increased the official cash rate by 25 basis points to 3%. The Reserve Bank upgraded its estimate of GDP growth for the year to March to 3.5%. The bank is trying to keep inflation near the middle of its 1 to 3% target band to ensure the current economic expansion can be sustained. Reserve Bank Governor Graham Wheeler says the speed and extent to which the OCR will be raised will depend on economic data and continuing assessment of emerging inflationary pressure, including the extent to which the high exchange rate leads to lower inflationary pressure. The last increase in the cash rate was just 6 weeks ago, and it's expected to increase 2 percentage points in the next 2 years, which would see floating home loan interest rates at 7.5 to 7.75%. The Salvation Army are hopeful that homeless men and women in Invercargill will soon have a place to sleep as the organisation inches closer to securing a new night shelter. Rachel Meredith talks to Captain Perry Bray about how things are progressing with finding a premises since the closure of the Live-In Street shelter in 2012.
We've identified a property in town that would be ideal to provide night shelter, emergency accommodation type stuff, and also short-term accommodation if required, just so that we can help people out over a short period of time to get them into services that will be able to look at more permanent solutions for those that are affected by homelessness.
So you say you've identified a property. What are the next stages?
The next stage is obviously to get some money together. Part of the annual draft plan we've got in with the council at the moment is to get general support from the public around how much support the council gives, and also how much funding that they're prepared to give as well. So
how long do you expect this to take for these funding to come in?
Once we get the go-ahead from council that they're willing to put some money behind it, we'll also be seeking public donations and also applying to other organisations to get some funding as well.
The Salvation Army is also gearing up for a week of fundraising starting on Monday as part of the annual Red Shield appeal. Captain Annette Bray tells us what to expect in Invercargill next week.
We're going to have collectors out every day, Monday through Saturday, and they'll be in supermarkets, most of the supermarkets throughout Invercargill, and also places like the Warehouse and H&J Smith's and a couple of other places. And there should be somebody there for most of the working hours, so from sort of 8:30 through to 5. Some of them a bit longer, some of them a little bit shorter, but there'll be collectors out all over the place. And you can always come into one of our offices if you miss our collectors where they are, and donate money.
So will all the funds raised locally go to local initiatives?
Initially the money gets all pulled together in Wellington, but then we get money back every year to help us do the food bank and different things in our community, and I think we end up getting more back than what we actually send in. So it's a great opportunity for people in our community to support others who are not doing so well.
Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt says he's never seen an issue unite local government to the extent that legal highs have. Mr Shadbolt has united with Gore District Mayor Tracy Hicks and Southland District Mayor Gary Tong in calling for psychoactive substances to be banned. He says that currently pressure is being applied to parliamentarians in order to have at least one party request a reassessment of the Psychoactive Substances Act 2013. All MPs except ACT's John Banks supported the legislation last year. I asked the Invercargill Mayor whether he and his fellow mayors were disillusioned by the overwhelming support from MPs for the Psychoactive Substance Act.
Well, we're disturbed as much as disillusioned, I think, by what's happened. We've read Hansard, and I've distributed copies to my councillors, and the MPs seemed to be almost flippant, jovial about what they were doing, and seemed to clearly understand that they were passing the buck to local government to sort out, and just there didn't really seem to be a lot of logic or explanation given in Parliament as to why they were taking this step. I have never seen so many mayors and so many local representatives so passionate and disturbed by what's going on in this country as I've seen over the synthetic cannabis issue. They are up in arms, and of course we've been left with the job of actually sorting out where these shops are going to be, which is almost like an endorsement of the legislation. And I think that's also making us very angry.
Is it time for a review of the Misuse of Drugs Act? I know Leslie Soper, the Labor candidate for Invercargill, says it's about time to do that we do ask those questions in general about the legislation.
I think we're going to have to. We've been forced to do so by the Trojan horse of synthetic cannabis. Every other drug has an ingredient that's clearly definable. This one doesn't. It uses legal or not outlawed combinations of chemicals, and they are in a difficult position. But it makes me nervous to think that New Zealand is the only country in the world that's taken this approach. All right, it may make us look innovative, but it may also make us look very stupid.
You, Tracy Hicks and Gary Tong, are united over this. You're given the Associate Health Minister and the Minister of Health time to answer these questions before you take the next step in the campaign, it says on the press release. What is that next step?
Well, I think it'll be working as a united body. At the moment, what we're trying to do is drive a wedge between the parties just through this kind of pressure that you see, full-page advertising. I don't think I've ever seen the three mayors of Southland take out a full page and to advertise their position. And it only needs one party to crack the unanimous approach being taken by Parliament that could lead to the whole issue of drug law reform being back on the agenda.
Stay with us after the break. Religious freedom, the outlook for Anzac Day, and filmmaking on Esk Street. Welcome back to South Today News. Those out and about in the centre city over the last 2 nights would have noticed a lot more action than usual on Esk Street. Electric Shoelace Productions has been shooting a short film on Esk Street called Click Clack Click. I asked writer and director James Wilkinson about the project.
Basically, the storyline's about a young girl who's working at a restaurant, and then she's travelling home from work, and she sees this beautiful red dress in the shop window, and she goes into this fantasy world of where she now wears the dress and essentially dances this classical ballet sequence, which is all filmed on Esk Street. So
let's talk about the production. We'll obviously all get to see the film at the end, but quite a massive production, isn't it? You actually closed off Esk Street last night.
We did, yeah. We've closed Esk Street off 2 nights in a row now. I've been very lucky to have the support of the council to let us do that because it's pretty major. And then, yeah, we've just lit up the whole street and put red carpet down the middle, and yeah, it's great.
There's some excellent equipment there, isn't there? And that sort of leads us on to funding. How important is it for filmmakers such as yourself that funding is available, and is it easy to come by?
Yeah, getting funding is critical. It's extremely expensive. Like the equipment used to make it look right, it's just so important. But we're really fortunate to be able to have local access to local funding through the help of the Southland Filmmakers Trust, and through them we were able to access some funding from the ILT and the Communities Trust, and SOT came on board as well. So through them, but we had a lot of support from the Queenstown crew. They've come on board and sponsored us with a lot of the reduced rates on the high ridge and everything like that, which helped out immensely. There's no way we could have afforded to make this film any other way, but yeah.
What are the aspirations for the film? What will you do when you finally do make that final cut? What's going to happen to it from there?
From there, we're hoping to send it off to submit it to festivals. So we're going to try for the A-list festivals in Europe first, and then if that gets in, then it should hopefully travel well. And then we just sort of work our way down to the B festivals if it doesn't get in there. But I'm pretty confident that we've got a really good film here, so can't see why it won't get in. But and then eventually, after it's travelled, we're going to have a big premiere in Invercargill. Again, the New Zealand premiere will be down here at the Civic.
And I guess directors are always, or producers are always thinking of the next project. What are you, and what is it?
Yeah, so Electric Shoelace Productions, our producer Jamie, who's my producer, straight after this we're in pre-production on the next short film for another member of the Electric Shoelace Productions, Joel Garman, and he's going to shoot a film down here called The Pirate Boy, and that's all going to be shot locally here in Southland as well, so that's next, hopefully up later this year we'll be shooting that.
There are expected to be thousands attending dawn parades around the region tomorrow as the August centenary of the outbreak of the First World War draws nearer. Numbers attending Anzac commemorative events have grown steadily in recent years, and the Return and Services Association is expecting interest to continue growing as New Zealanders embrace the significance of the sacrifices made by the war generations. Tomorrow there will be a special screening of the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral during the Vietnam War at the Southland and NZ Art Gallery at 6 p.m, and again at 7:30 p.m. Entrance is by gold coin donation. Also currently there is an Anzac centenary exhibition on at the Riverton Arts Centre, which runs until the 11th of May. Commemorative attendees should wrap up warm as the Met Service is predicting wet and chilly conditions for Anzac Day, with a high of 13 expected in the city. Professor of Law at Otago University, Rex Adar, kicked off the first lunchtime seminar of the City Faith Forum series at St Paul's Presbyterian Church yesterday. Mr Adar, who has authored several books, took to the stage to discuss religious freedoms with a 60-strong audience. A question and answer session brought to light concerns over people's rights to practice their own religion and stand by their beliefs. Rachel Meredith asked the professor what issues New Zealand and the local community face when trying to accommodate different religious practices.
We do have a strong and largely effective protection for religious freedom in New Zealand, but around the edges and at the margins, so to speak, there are a number of issues that are starting to cause some concern and tension, and just highlighting some of those issues that might need a bit more attention and might well see a few more court cases in the near future.
So what would you say are the main issues?
Well, some of the ones I mentioned today, such as the Future of the Bible in Schools program, that's an ongoing one. The continued use of Christian symbols and observances in public settings, such as the opening prayer in Parliament, things like that.
Would you say New Zealand or Southland is quite a tolerant place for different religions?
I think overall, and they've tried to study this actually, there is a high degree of religious tolerance in New Zealand here. Some would say more cynically that's because there are so few religious minorities, and while Muslims and Hindus and the like are only 1%, it won't be a problem. But as you get in countries like France and Britain, when those non-Christian religious minorities get larger and tensions start to build, we may see New Zealand's levels of tolerance perhaps not quite so understanding.
I mean, in Invercargill, with the SIT, there's a lot of international students over here now. Do you think there's going to be more of a need for religious freedom to be really at the top of the agenda down here?
Well, I think places like the SIT and other public institutions will have to cater for and provide for students from other religions, whether it's they provide rooms or a chapel or some such so they can do their prayers, obvious things like that.
Golden Fiddle Award winner Marion Burns has brought her passion for music down to Invercargill to inspire both young and old to get involved in the folk scene. Marion travelled down from Auckland to put on a 3-day ukulele and fiddle workshop at Ascot Park Community School this week. The dynamic musician and a group of around 40 students are gearing up for a final concert planned for 2:30 tomorrow at Repertory House. The youngest players, dubbed the Twinkles, have been helped along by parents, while the more experienced musicians have the chance to follow Mariam's energetic lead. Marion, who has won various awards for her music, says the kids in Invercargill have been incredible. Well, that's all from us today. Remember to wrap up warm for Anzac Day dawn parades. Sports is up next. Have a great long weekend.